Two cops thought they could harass a black woman for no reason, but what they didn't know, she was the state's chief prosecutor. In one shocking twist inside the courtroom, their entire careers came crashing down, live, in front of the world. What happened next will leave you speechless. It was a calm evening in downtown Brooksville when Monica Harris, a well-dressed black mother, drove her silver SUV down Main Street. Her 6-month-old son, Caleb, slept peacefully in the car seat behind her. Monica had just picked him up from daycare after a long day at the office, and all she wanted was to get home, prepare dinner, and enjoy some quiet time with her family. But flashing red and blue lights in her rearview mirror shattered the calm. 2 patrol cars boxed her in. Her heart sank, not because she had done anything wrong, but because she already knew what was about to happen. Officer Rick Dalton, tall, broad-shouldered, and carrying an air of arrogance, approached her window with his hand resting on his holster. His partner, Officer Mark Stevens, hung back slightly, scanning the car as if Monica were a suspect rather than a mother with a child. "License and registration," Rick barked. "Routine stop." Monica kept her hands on the steering wheel, steady but calm. "Officer, may I ask why I'm being pulled over?" Rick smirked. "Did I say you could ask questions?" "License. Now." Caleb stirred in the back seat, letting out a small whimper. Monica turned her head for a split second to soothe him. That moment was enough for Rick to lean closer, his tone sharpening. "Keep your eyes on me. Don't try anything funny." The words stung, but Monica didn't flinch. She had been in situations like this before, unjustified stops, hostile tones, but this time it was different, because tonight these officers had no idea who they were speaking to. Behind the calmness in Monica's eyes was the quiet confidence of a woman who carried power far beyond what these men could imagine. Little did they know, the woman they were harassing wasn't just any black mom. She was the state attorney of Brooksville. Officer Rick Dalton tapped the roof of Monica's SUV impatiently, his fingers drumming like a warning. "Step out of the vehicle," he ordered, his voice loud enough to draw a few glances from pedestrians nearby. Monica stayed calm, her eyes steady. "Officer, I've complied. You have my license and registration. I would appreciate knowing the reason for this stop." Rick leaned down, his face inches from hers. "You people always want explanations. It's a routine check. Don't push your luck." From behind, Officer Mark Stevens shifted uncomfortably. He wasn't as aggressive as Rick, but he wasn't about to challenge his partner either. He eyed baby Caleb in the back seat, then said, "Rick, maybe we should just—" "Quiet, Stevens," Rick snapped. "I know what I'm doing." Caleb began to cry, his tiny voice piercing the heavy air. Monica instinctively reached back to comfort him, but Rick immediately slammed his palm against the car. "Hands where I can see them," he barked. The sharp command startled Caleb, making him wail louder. Monica took a slow breath, her calmness like steel. "Officer Dalton, I am not a threat. My son is frightened. Please lower your voice." Rick's jaw tightened. To him, Monica's calmness wasn't strength, it was defiance, and he hated defiance. "You think you're smarter than me? Step out." "Now," he repeated. Several people had stopped on the sidewalk, pulling out their phones. A woman whispered, "She's got a baby in the car. Why are they treating her like that?" Monica noticed the growing crowd but remained composed. She knew this could spiral quickly, and the last thing she wanted was for Caleb to see his mother dragged from the car. Still, she also knew something the officers didn't. One wrong move from them and their careers would be over, and Rick Dalton was seconds away from making that mistake. The street was now buzzing with murmurs as more bystanders paused to watch. Phone cameras tilted toward the SUV, capturing every second. Monica Harris remained steady, but inside her chest, her heart pounded, not from fear, but from anger at the injustice playing out in front of her infant son. Baby Caleb's cries grew louder, his tiny fists waving in the air as if protesting the harshness of the scene. Monica leaned slightly toward him, her voice soft and soothing. "It's okay, Caleb. Mommy's here." But Officer Rick Dalton saw it differently. "I said out of the car. Don't make me repeat myself again," he snarled, his hand brushing the grip of his holstered weapon. The crowd gasped audibly. Someone shouted, "She's got a baby with her! Back off!" Officer Mark Stevens shifted again, clearly uneasy. "Rick, maybe we should—" Rick cut him off sharply. "You questioning me now? She's hiding something, I can feel it." He then leaned closer to Monica's window, his eyes narrowing. "What's in the back? Drugs? Weapons? Huh?" Monica met his glare with unshaken composure. "What's in the back is my son. Nothing more, nothing less. I've told you before, officer, I've done nothing wrong. You are frightening my child." Caleb's cries reached a desperate pitch, pulling on everyone's emotions. Even Stevens hesitated, his stern posture softening as he glanced at the baby's trembling lip. Monica slowly unbuckled her seatbelt, but instead of stepping out, she turned toward Caleb. She placed her hand gently on his chest, calming his sobs little by little. Then she looked back at Rick, her eyes sharp, her voice low. "You don't realize who you're dealing with, but soon you will—" Rick laughed coldly, mistaking her words for bluff. "Lady, the only thing you're dealing with is me." But in that moment, the crowd's cameras caught something Rick didn't notice, Monica's official badge case peeking slightly from her purse. The evening air grew tense as Monica's calm defiance clashed with Officer Rick Dalton's aggression. The crowd recording from the sidewalk whispered among themselves, many zooming in their phones. One bystander gasped. "Wait, is that a badge?" a young man muttered, nudging his friend. From Monica's purse, slightly unzipped, the state attorney's badge glimmered under the streetlight. It wasn't fully visible, but enough for keen eyes to notice. Monica, however, didn't draw attention to it. She wanted the officers to reveal their own arrogance before she delivered the truth. Rick, blinded by ego, leaned closer. "I said out of the car!" His voice thundered, as if he were addressing a dangerous criminal. He tugged at the handle, but the door remained locked. Inside, Monica's voice was steady as stone. "Officer Dalton, you're overstepping. I advise you to stop now." Mark Stevens's nerves were unraveling. He cleared his throat. "Rick, listen. The cameras, the crowd, this is getting out of hand," Rick sneered. "Let them film. They'll see what happens when people think they can outsmart me." Caleb whimpered again, sensing the storm around him. Monica reached back to gently stroke his cheek. Her eyes, though soft for her son, sharpened as she looked forward. "You think this is about control," she said quietly, her voice carrying a weight Rick didn't recognize. "But tonight, your career is balancing on the edge of your own choices." Rick laughed dismissively, but Mark froze. Something about Monica's words, her poise, and the whispering crowd made his gut twist. Then a bold voice from the sidewalk rang out. "Hey! Isn't that Monica Harass, the state attorney?" The crowd hushed instantly. Rick's smirk faltered for the first time. He turned back toward Monica, his eyes narrowing, but there was a flicker of doubt now. Monica didn't confirm, didn't deny. She simply held his gaze, her silence more powerful than any protest. And for the first time, Rick Dalton felt the ground beneath him begin to shake. Officer Rick Dalton's jaw clenched as the crowd's whisper spread like wildfire. "State attorney? No way," someone muttered. A middle-aged woman gasped, pulling her daughter closer. The tension had shifted, the balance of power wobbling, but Rick wasn't ready to let go of control. He yanked harder on Monica's car door, his voice booming. "Out! Now! I don't care who you think you are." Monica didn't move. Her calm stare only fanned his fury. "Officer Dalton," she said evenly, "you are dangerously close to making a mistake you won't recover from." Baby Caleb whimpered again, his little fists curling as if sensing the heat of conflict. Monica leaned back briefly, murmuring, "Shh, sweetheart, Mummy's here." The tenderness of the moment stood in stark contrast to Rick's aggressive stance. Officer Mark Stevens shifted uncomfortably, glancing at the recording phones surrounding them. "Rick," he whispered, "what if she is who they say she is? We need to—" "Shut it, Stevens," Rick barked, cutting him off. His pride refused to bend. He tugged at the handle again, louder this time. "Step out before I drag you out myself." The crowd gasped. Several voices rose in protest. "She has a baby in there. You can't do that. Back off, man." Monica slowly unlocked her door. The click echoed like a warning bell. She didn't open it, though. Instead, she placed her hand on the frame, her voice steady but powerful. "You've already gone too far. Your actions tonight will follow you into every courtroom, every hearing, every review board. And I'll be there." Rick froze, his smirk faltering. For the first time, he wasn't sure if the woman in front of him was bluffing, or if she truly held his fate in her hands. And in the silence that followed, the weight of Monica's identity hung heavy in the air, threatening to crush him. By now, at least a dozen people had gathered around the scene. Phone cameras glimmered under the streetlights, capturing every word, every gesture. Some whispered in disbelief, others shouted openly at the officers. "She's not resisting," one man yelled. "She's got a baby, leave her alone," another woman cried. But Officer Rick Dalton stood firm, his pride pushing him deeper into a hole he couldn't escape. His hand hovered dangerously close to his weapon, as if intimidation could erase the murmurs of truth spreading through the crowd. Officer Mark Stevens, however, was unraveling. His eyes darted from the phones to Monica's steady gaze. He leaned closer to Rick. "Rick, this isn't right. People are already uploading this. Look." He gestured nervously at a teenager who was live streaming. Rick scoffed. "Let them stream. She'll learn not to play games with me." Inside the SUV, Monica Harris adjusted Caleb's blanket, her movements calm, deliberate. Then she rolled down her window just enough for her voice to carry. "You want control, Officer Dalton? Fine. But know this. Control built on intimidation crumbles the moment truth steps in. And tonight, truth is watching." The crowd erupted. "She iced the state attorney," someone shouted, pointing to their phone screen, where Monica's official photo was now displayed from a quick online search. Gasps spread like wildfire. Even Mark's face paled. "Rick," he muttered, "it's her. It's really her." Rick's confidence wavered for the first time. His eyes flickered from Monica to the crowd, then back again. But his pride chained him. He leaned in, voice low and venomous. "Doesn't matter who you are. Tonight, you answer to me." Monica's lips curved into the faintest knowing smile. "No, Officer Dalton. Tonight, you answer to the law." And the crowd roared, their chants echoing through the street as cameras stayed locked on the crumbling authority of the two officers. The chants from the crowd grew louder, shaking the confidence of both officers. A teenager shouted, "She's the state attorney! It's all over Twitter already!" Within minutes, Monica Harris's name and photo were flashing on live streams, comments pouring in from people who couldn't believe what they were witnessing. Officer Mark Stevens took a step back, sweat forming on his brow. His instincts screamed at him to de-escalate. "Rick, we need to stop. This isn't some traffic stop anymore. This is—" Rick Dalton cut him off with a glare sharp enough to slice steel. "Don't you dare back out now. I don't care who she says she is. Out of the car!" He pounded the side of the SUV again, his voice shaking with rage. Inside, Monica Harris finally unbuckled her seatbelt. Her movements were graceful, deliberate, almost ceremonial. She leaned over and kissed baby Caleb on the forehead, whispering softly, "It's going to be all right, sweetheart." Caleb, sensing his mother's calm, settled into silence. Then Monica reached into her purse. The crowd collectively gasped, and Rick's hand shot to his holster. "Easy," he barked. Monica ignored him. With slow precision, she pulled out a black leather badge case. She opened it wide, holding it up for everyone to see. The gold shield caught the streetlight, and beneath it, the clear lettering silenced every doubt. State Attorney, Monica Harris. The crowd erupted into cheers and shouts. "I told you, she is the state attorney. You're finished, man." Mark Stevens staggered back, his face drained of color. But Rick's pride still fought against the truth. His voice cracked as he tried to recover control. "So what? Title doesn't put you above the law." Monica stepped out of the SUV, her presence commanding the street. She looked Rick straight in the eyes, her voice calm but thunderous in its impact. "No, Officer Dalton, my title puts me in charge of the law, and right now you're standing on the wrong side of it." The silence that followed was deafening. For a moment the entire street froze. The only sound was the faint hum of engines passing by and the rhythmic clicking of cameras recording history in real time. Officer Mark Stevens stepped back, his hands trembling. His voice quivered. "Rick, she's the state attorney. We're done. We need to back off, right now." But Officer Rick Dalton's pride was a monster he couldn't silence. His face flushed red, his jaw tight with fury. "I don't care if she's the Queen of England. Nobody disrespects me on my stop." His voice cracked as he tried to hold his authority together. The crowd wasn't buying it. "You're finished, man," one teenager shouted. "She could end your whole career," a woman added, recording every second. Monica Harris stood tall beside her SUV, baby Caleb in her arms now, his small head resting against her shoulder. The sight of her holding her child while staring down two armed officers sent chills through the onlookers. She spoke slowly, each word deliberate, slicing through Rick's bluster. "Officer Dalton, Officer Stevens, you've unlawfully detained me, threatened me, and endangered my child. Everything has been documented. Everything will be reviewed." Mark swallowed hard, whispering to Rick, "She can press charges against us. We'll lose our badges, our pensions." His voice cracked. Rick snapped, gripping Mark's arm. "Get it together. We can still flip this. We'll say she resisted, that she—" "No!" Monica's voice boomed before he could finish. She stepped forward, the crowd parting around her like water around a stone. "The truth isn't yours to twist tonight. Every phone here is evidence, every voice, every eye is a witness, and I assure you, this will not disappear." Rick's bravado faltered, sweat glistening on his temple. He glanced at the dozens of lenses pointed his way, realizing his shield wouldn't protect him this time. For the first time, fear, not control, entered his eyes. The next morning, the video of the incident had already gone viral. Millions had seen Officer Rick Dalton pounding on a mother's car door, threatening her as she cradled her crying baby, only to realize too late that the woman was none other than State Attorney Monica Harris. Hashtags blazed across social media, hashtag Justice for Monica, in corrupt cops, and hashtag Attorney versus Cops. By noon, the courthouse steps swarmed with reporters. Microphones and cameras created a wall of flashing lights as Monica entered, holding her head high, baby Caleb in her husband David Harris's arms beside her. The public's cheers were deafening. Inside, the courtroom was packed. At the defendant's table sat Rick Dalton and Mark Stevens, both stripped of their uniforms, now in plain suits. Rick's once arrogant face looked worn, his eyes darting nervously. Stevens sat stiff, visibly shaken. The heavy wooden doors opened, and Judge Evelyn Brooks entered, her gavel slamming down. "Court is now in session." Monica rose from her seat at the prosecutor's table. Her presence filled the room with authority and calm. She wasn't just another lawyer here, she was the victim, and the prosecutor rolled into one. "Your Honor," she began, her voice steady. "Last night, while driving home with my infant son, I was unlawfully targeted, harassed, and threatened by these two officers. They abused their power, violated my rights, and endangered a child, all under the false veil of a routine stop." Gasps rippled through the audience. Judge Brooks leaned forward, her eyes narrowing on the officers. "Is this true?" she demanded. Mark Stevens immediately lowered his head. Rick Dalton, however, tried to speak, his voice cracking. "Your Honor, she was resisting, Monica cut him off sharply. "Resisting? The videos show everything. I complied, I asked questions, and for that, Officer Dalton treated me like a criminal." The courtroom buzzed with murmurs, reporters scribbling furiously. Judge Brooks raised her gavel again. "Order! Order in this court!" Rick Dalton's face paled as he realized he was no longer the man in control. The courtroom was heavy with silence, broken only by the scratching of pens from reporters. Judge Evelyn Brooks adjusted her glasses, her gaze piercing straight through the two officers at the defense table. "Officer Dalton." "Officer Stevens," she said slowly, her voice stern, "you were sworn to serve and protect. Instead, the evidence suggests you abused your authority, harassed a mother, and endangered her child. And worse, you attempted to twist the truth in your favor." Mark Stevens lowered his head further, shame etched across his face. His lips trembled, as though words wanted to escape but couldn't. Rick Dalton, however, leaned forward desperately. "Your Honor, the situation was misinterpreted. She was hiding something, and I followed procedure. The cameras only caught part of it." At that, a ripple of laughter and scoffs erupted from the crowd. Judge Brooks slammed her gavel. "Enough." She turned to Monica. "State Attorney Harris, you may proceed." Monica rose with calm precision. Every step she took echoed through the chamber. Standing tall, she faced the jury, her tone deliberate and unshakable. "I stand before you not just as the state attorney," she said, "but as a mother who was targeted for nothing more than the color of her skin and the sound of her voice asking, 'Why?' These officers thought they could intimidate me, twist reality, and silence me. But what they didn't know was that the law they tried to weaponize against me is the very law I uphold." Gasps filled the air. Reporters' pens flew across their notepads. Monica turned sharply toward Rick and Mark. This isn't about me. This is about every innocent person who has been silenced, harassed, and humiliated during so-called routine stops. What happened to me is a mirror of what happens to many, except they don't always get to fight back. Judge Brooks nodded, her expression grim. The truth is clear. Officer Dalton, Officer Stevens, prepare yourselves. The law will have its say. Rick Dalton's hands clenched into fists, but his face betrayed panic. Stevens looked ready to collapse under the weight of his own guilt. The walls of power they once hid behind were crumbling fast. The courtroom buzzed with anticipation as Judge Evelyn Brooks prepared to deliver her decision. Reporters leaned forward, their pens hovering, ready to capture the moment that would decide the fates of Rick Dalton and Mark Stevens. Rick's face was pale but tense, his jaw set in defiance. Stevens, on the other hand, looked broken, his eyes downcast, his hands fidgeting nervously. Judge Brooks's gavel struck once. This court has reviewed the evidence, including video footage from multiple witnesses, audio recordings, and the sworn testimony of State Attorney Monica Harass. The conclusion is inescapable. These officers grossly abused their power. The gallery erupted in murmurs of agreement. Rick's head shot up, his voice cracking with desperation. Your Honor, you don't understand. I was just doing my job. She disrespected me. Monica rose smoothly, cutting him off without even raising her voice. You mistook my calm for defiance. You mistook my questions for rebellion. And you mistook your badge for a license to intimidate. That is not your job, Officer Dalton. That is your downfall. The words struck like a hammer. The crowd gasped, then erupted into applause until Judge Brooks silenced them with a sharp slam of her gavel. Order. This court will not turn into a rally. She fixed her eyes on the officers once more. Rick Dalton, Mark Stevens, effective immediately, you are stripped of your positions. You will face criminal charges for unlawful detainment, endangerment of a child, and abuse of authority. Rick's face drained of color. His mouth opened, but no words came. Stevens finally broke, his voice trembling. I'm sorry, Miss Harass. I never wanted it to go this far. Monica turned to him, her gaze steady. Then you should have stopped it when you had the chance. The crowd roared again, cameras flashing furiously. Rick sank back into his chair, his career shattered, while Stevens buried his face in his hands. For the first time in the entire ordeal, Monica allowed herself a small breath of relief. Justice wasn't just promised, it was happening in real time. The gavel struck one last time, echoing through the packed courtroom like thunder. Judge Evelyn Brooks leaned forward, her voice carrying finality. This case is closed. Officers Dalton and Stevens will be remanded for further proceedings. Court dismissed. The room erupted into cheers, reporters shouting questions, cameras flashing like lightning. But in the center of it all stood Monica Harass, calm and unshaken, baby Caleb cradled gently in her arms. She turned slowly, addressing not just the crowd in the courtroom, but the millions watching online. Her voice was clear, powerful, and filled with the quiet strength of a woman who had fought battles before, and won. Last night, I was treated as though my dignity didn't matter, as though my son's safety didn't matter. But what happened to me was not unique. It happens every day to people without a badge, without a title, and without an audience to bear witness. The crowd hushed, every ear tuned to her words. Even the cameras seemed to steady, as though the entire world was holding its breath. Monica's gaze swept across the room, pausing on the two disgraced officers now being escorted away in handcuffs. The law is not a weapon to be abused. It is a shield meant to protect the vulnerable. Those who betray that sacred duty will always be held accountable, whether their victims are strangers, mothers, or state attorneys. David Harass, her husband, stepped forward and placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Caleb cooed softly, as if sensing that his mother's fight was won. Monica offered a small, resolute smile. Justice was served today, not because of who I am, but because of what the truth revealed. Let this serve as a message: no one is above the law, and no one is beneath its protection. The room erupted in applause, the sound carrying beyond the courtroom, beyond the courthouse, spreading across the nation through every broadcast and live stream. As Monica stepped out into the sunlight, holding Caleb close, the people lining the courthouse steps began to chant her name. For them, she was more than a prosecutor. She was proof that even in the face of abuse, truth and justice will always prevail. And for Rick Dalton and Mark Stevens, the message was clear. Arrogance may roar, but justice always speaks louder.